everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about a few romances that are perfect for fall. So they have fall vibes, witchy vibes, there's they're romances that are also just more cozy and more than just a romance, right? So perfect for this season. All right. Up first, I have The Ex-Hex and The Kiss Curse, both by Erin Sterling, who is actually Rachel Hawkins. She is writing as Erin Sterling, especially for her romances, but for her thrillers and her mysteries, she sticks to her name, Rachel Hawkins. And I read The Ex-Hex earlier this month. I had a great time reading it. We are in September, but I already find myself ready for all the spooky romances, and this one was great. So The Kiss Curse is the second part to it. That's the one that I haven't yet picked up. Even though I really want to, I will likely wait until October just so I have something else left in this pile. But The Ex-Hex was really lovely. It's about our main character who is a witch, and it's set in present day, and they're in this small town where witches are living in secret. And it starts off with our character being 19 years old, breaking up with her now ex-boyfriend, and with her sister she decides to place a hex on him, but they didn't actually think it was going to work. Even though they're witches, they just thought they were just doing it for fun. And now fast forward, I believe 9 or 10 years, they are reunited again, the ex and the main character. And what follows from there is this, second chance romance, a bit of enemies to lovers, but for the main character to also come face to face with the realization that her hex actually worked. And it's fun. There's not so much magic or wand waving or anything in this book. There are little mentions of magic, no flying witches or anything like that, just a very normal, regular person who just happens to be a witch. I really enjoyed this romance. If I'm remembering correctly, it wasn't spicy at all. But a really good element of solving this mystery that has something now to do with their town because of this hex that was placed on her ex all those years ago. And I'm not going to say more than that because I wouldn't want to spoil it, but I thought it was great. It was fun. I read it in 2 days. It was one of those romances that just has you wanting to read what's going to happen next. Some romances have a lull in the middle. This one didn't. Thankfully, this one also didn't have a super dramatic third act breakup. As I've been reading more romances this year, I've come to learn that that is a very natural progression of a romance, is that there is going to be a third act, dramatic misunderstanding or a breakup, and then miraculously they make it up again before the end. This one, I'm thinking there was one, but it wasn't so dramatic that has you rolling your eyes. The romance was definitely a lot more believable, and I really appreciated that. And like I said, I'm looking forward to reading the sequel, Kiss Curse, which is about the other sister, and I believe the brother of the main character from the main guy from the first one. All right, up next, I want to read To Have and to Heist by Sarah Desai. This is my first Sarah Desai novel. I have not read anything by her, and this one sounds really interesting. And the reason why I'm picking this up for fall as opposed to perhaps summer is just it's got, again, more than romance. It's got a really kind of fun heist. So basically it's about our main character, Simi Chopra. Apparently she's on a bad luck streak. She loses her job and she has huge student debt, and her best friend has been accused of stealing a multi-million-dollar diamond necklace. And so somehow she meets our male protagonist, Jack, who steps in and he decides to help her find that necklace to clear her best friend's name. And she ends up, seems gathering a whole team of strangers to conduct this heist and crash a really high-scale wedding. An upscale high society wedding, and then there's dangerous criminals involved here, so I'm getting some mafia vibes and a heist. And there's something fall about that. There's something fall about a heist. I can't necessarily place my finger on what it is. I think perhaps it's sort of this anticipation and the high momentum that would come with reading about a heist. I imagine it's going to be highly like fast-paced, but I imagine it has more to do with that. So I am looking forward to picking this one up. Up next is a book that I actually read earlier this year, a few months ago, and I think it's actually perfect for a fall romance. And this is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sengu Mandana. And I really enjoyed this. I can't remember what rating I gave it, but to be honest, it was more of a cozy feel-good read than a traditional romance. There's a huge romance subplot in here, but there's more of a feel-good family vibe as well. So it's basically about our main character, Mika Moon. She is a witch living in plain sight. And nobody knows that she's a witch except for on TikTok, she has a witch account. And because I guess like being a witch is so on trend now, that she's able to exist in plain sight, and people just think she's really good at her special effects on TikTok. So that's where she really has an identity. And she gets approached by someone online, and they want her to come to this house for, I'm guessing, like young orphan witches, and to homeschool 3 young witches. And she takes them up on that offer. And what follows from there is this really sweet story about finding connection and a sense of community, because Micah has been very isolated, and just it's so feel good watching her come together and school these 3 young girls who are also witches and teaching them how to control their powers. And there's a romance with the librarian who also lives in that house, who's also kind of responsible for this homeschooling. So between him and her, and I enjoyed the romance. I'll say it wasn't the best, but what really got to me in this book was just that found family aspect. I thought it was so heartwarming and it was so great. Usually I don't really enjoy books with a lot of children in them, but surprisingly I did this one. I thought it was really great and has all the perfect cozy vibes. All right, after that I have My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. I bought this thinking, oh, I have another book I'm going to read in the fall time, and I actually finished it. I already finished it mid-September, and I am not sad about it because it was so fun. It is exactly what it sounds like. This main character, Cassie, she is really broke and she's looking for a new place to stay, and she responds to this really odd ad online for someone looking for a roommate. And even though she has a lot of qualms about it, she decides to go check it out, and it's really cheap for a really, really nice place, and she moves in. But turns out her roommate is very weird and very mysterious. He sleeps all day and he only comes out at night, and first she thinks it's his work schedule, but eventually he is she finds out that he's a vampire. And there is a romance for sure between these two later on, but I know what you're thinking. You're thinking Twilight, and let me just stop you there. This is not Twilighty at all. I'm not going to say more, but this was not cringe. Actually, this was a lot of fun. I was scared to pick this up because I thought that it was going to be very reminiscent of Twilight and whatever, Vampire Academy and those books, but it was so fun and obviously really outlandish, but still very cozy. The main plot in this book is that the vampire, he has a proposition for her, and I'm not going to say what it is because then that would ruin it, but that's really where our story really picks up pace. And it is a really fun romantic comedy. I think if you're looking for more fun romances to read this fall season, this would be such a great option. Another book that I have here that I also bought thinking I was going to read in October, but I ended up reading it now, is Enchanted to Meet You by Meg Cabot. This is a new book, I believe, and Meg Cabot is one who's written Princess Diaries and all of that. I had really, really high hopes for this book. I read it. I did not love it, unfortunately. I will be reviewing it in full at the end of the month. But the premise sounded like really interesting to me. It's basically about, there's a lot happening in this book. I kind of wish that the author had picked one of those plot points and just explored that. But it's basically about this witch living in a small town, Jessica Gold. She has a stranger come to her small town saying he needs her to mentor another teenage witch in their town, because the two of them are together supposed to be able to save their town. So that's really the premise, and obviously then the romance is between Jessica and this guy, Derek. And that's really all I'm going to say about it. There is the theme of belonging and found family, again, is very prominent in this one. And there is a bit of like adventure as well, not as much as some of the other ones I mentioned, but this didn't really do much for me. But just because I didn't like it doesn't mean it's not a good book or that you shouldn't read it. But check it out if you enjoy that like mentorship aspect and like one witch mentoring another, and a bit of like coming of age and a bit of like found family and badass women. Like, this is definitely a good one for that. The last book I have today is actually a YA, but I think anybody could read it and actually enjoy it. This is Spells for Lost Things by Jenna Evans Welch. This is the same author as like Love and Gelato and that series. And I bought this and read this in January of this year because it came out end of last year, I believe. And I really like anything by this author. And I picked it up and I thought it was amazing. Now, I can't believe if I read it in January, if I read it at the end of last year, but I did read it sometime around the holidays. And I thought it was great. This is not necessarily like witchy stuff, but this follows two characters. We have Willow and we have Mason. Willow is looking forward to traveling the world right after high school, but her plans change when her mom drags her to their hometown of Salem, Massachusetts. And Willow has never been there before. She's never heard her mom talk about their family there or their history. And turns out her mom had a sister who's passed away and who's like left the home now to the mom, and the mom has to like sell it or sort it out or whatever. And turns out she doesn't know a lot about her mom's history and a lot about her mom's family. It sort of gave me a little bit of Sabrina the Teenage Witch vibes, a little bit. But so you've got a sulky teenager in a beautiful town rediscovering her roots and her family history. And there she meets Mason, who I believe is a son of the realtor who her mom hires. And they form a nice friendship, and they go on this like journey of discovery of Willow's family past, and perhaps some witchiness and some spells that might have existed, and also just a cute romance. Again, romance was not the biggest focus, probably like 30%, but the rest was just this girl rediscovering, her family identity. And it was so beautiful. Like, the way that Jenna Evans Welch writes is so poetic, and it just flows so well. I love her writing. I love her characterization. She's really gifted with words. And when this book came out, I was a little bit disappointed because I was looking forward to another book in the Love and Gelato series. And I reluctantly picked this up. I didn't have many expectations, but I got to travel to Salem with this book, so I guess the travel aspect was still there. And it was so heartwarming. I usually stay away from teenage love stories. They're not my cup of tea. But again, what drew me to this was her, in a sense, also like rediscovering her relationship with her mom, with the other women in her family, and like I said, her family history and her family identity. So while this may not really have magic in it, or obvious witchy stuff or witches, if you are just looking for something with a fall vibe, this would be a good one. I don't think there was anything spooky in here, but just the fact that it's set in Salem, you know, so you've got like the witch trials and you've got this like spooky vibe. I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed how this author painted that town too for me, and it's for someone who's never been to Salem. But I thought this was a fun, light read, something maybe to be like a bit of a palate cleanser too, in between some of the spookier books that you may be reading this season. Definitely check this out. All right, so those are all of my fall romances / witchy romances, mysterious romances. I imagine I will probably pick up another couple before October is up, so I may do another part 2 of this video. Let me know if that's something that you'd like to see. And if you're enjoying these fall recommendations, check out my last video where I talk about some fall cozy mystery recommendations that are also, a lot of them also include BIPOC authors. Thank you so much for being here. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one.